You're listening to the Hog Sports Network Daily Podcast. Now, here's your host, Matt Jones.
Hey, welcome in. Happy Thursday to you. We've got Bubba Carpenter in studio today. We'll talk Razorback baseball after their midweek sweep of Louisiana Monroe yesterday over at Baum-Walker Stadium. Anthony Kristensen will be in a little bit later. We'll talk Razorback basketball, the win over Vanderbilt, and this upcoming weekend's game against Mississippi State. But we start with baseball. Razorbacks win 14-1 and 15-3 in a pair of 7-inning run rules over ULM. Arkansas now has won 8 games in a row. Bubba, they look, I mean, you have to consider the competition. I know that. But, I mean, they did to ULM what you would hope that Arkansas would do to an opponent of that caliber last couple of days.
Yeah, I think so. I was impressed with the hitters. I really was. You know what? Honestly, the pitching yesterday, too, with the wind blowing out like it was, I thought Bybee did a good job. Tate did a good job. McIntyre. Thought they all did a good job. But the hitters, what did we draw? 13 walks yesterday?
13 walks, yes.
And Nick and I talked about it on the broadcast. There were only a couple that were like non-competitive. Like the one dude, the lefty, walked, I think 8 balls in a row. But other than that, a lot of our walks were like good at bats where we laid off of pitches and then got good pitches to hit and either hit it or drew our walk. And that's what I like about this team is they're really good at if they don't get a pitch, they'll take their walk, let the next guy do the work.
Okay, so you said you can't remember what you had for lunch yesterday. Can you remember the game 2 days ago, 14-1?
Yes.
Okay, so let's start there. Arkansas wins this game, and it ended in a weird fashion where it ends up getting suspended and has to be completed yesterday. Kahio Aloy hit a grand slam on the 9th pitch after the restart to initiate a run rule, 14-1. The big inning, though, was a 6-run 4th inning, I think. Ryder Helfrich led off with a home run that I'm convinced brought the rain because it wasn't raining, and he hits this moonshot, and then 2 minutes later it's raining throughout the rest of the 4th inning. Brent Iredale had a 2-run home run in that inning, and it just goes back to what you were saying. It felt like the hitters were really locked in over the last couple of days.
Yeah, I think they were, and I mean – The pitching they faced wasn't that bad. I mean, it wasn't. I think we just did a good job of hunting our pitch, and then when we got it, we were on time. And it's good to see early on. Like you never know early in the year. Like you don't game plan for some of the speeds that they're seeing. Like I talked to Nolan after the game yesterday, and that was one thing we talked about. Is it's tough. Like opening up against Washington. You don't see some of the speeds that they saw. And because all fall you're seeing their guys at 95, and then all of a sudden you're facing a guy his fastballs, 85, and that's what our starters' changeups are. And so I think it's tough to adjust, but I think our guys have done a really good job. The last few days of getting it done. Really
good outing by Colin Fisher. What was it? 3 innings, 6 strikeouts, and didn't have a whole lot of traffic.
He looked really good. Had all his pitches working. He reminds me of Dallas Keuchel. Pitches off the third base side of the rubber, can throw across and clip that outside corner to righties. He can also throw into righties. I just like the way he pitches. And, if something were to happen in the starting rotation, that wouldn't be a bad option to throw him in the weekend rotation. Let's say we have trouble with a closer, move Beitelcheese to closer, move Fisher. I mean, there's just there's so many different directions you can go with it, but I thought he looked great.
For a pitcher like Fisher, he was in the same class with Gabe Gackle and with Hunter Dietz, who we'll talk about a little bit later. But, those guys, they come in, and, I mean, they got electric stuff. Fisher doesn't have that. He has to teach himself how to pitch a little bit differently. When you see him have kind of the same kind of success without the same kind of stuff, I wonder, what do you think?
Well, first time I saw him pitch last year, I was impressed with his mound presence. Like he doesn't have a 98-mile-an-hour fastball, but he knows how to pitch. And I say all the time, I'd rather face a guy throwing 98 down the middle or, that's just throwing a fastball than a guy that can throw 88 and cut it, sink it, work to both sides of the plate. Those guys are tough to hit.
So mentioned Kahio had the grand slam to end this first game. It was 9th pitch after the restart. Vahiva had a line out They intentionally walk Logan Maxwell, who didn't play in game 2, by the way. How about his day? He goes up there, says, you don't even have to take the pitches anymore. Just go down to first. And then Cahillo hits a grand slam. He jogs around the bases, and he's done for the afternoon. Nice little warm up for him. But on Cahillo, it's a 3-2 pitch. Guy hangs a breaking ball, and he just crushed it. And we talked about the wind yesterday. It was like gusting at probably about 40 miles an hour, steady, probably 20 to 30 miles an hour, gusting to 40. And he didn't hit it into the wind, but I would say he kind of hit it against the wind, where it was in kind of the direction of where the wind was coming from, and the TrackMan was not working at the time that he hit it. I told you that I studied the replay, like the Zapruder film last night, because it wasn't real clear, but I could finally see where the ball was bouncing, and it landed right next to the leg of one of the picnic tables out there in left field. And so if I were guessing, I would say that's about a 440 to 460-foot home run that he hit a little bit into the wind.
So I looked at your picture you sent me, and I didn't see a baseball, but
it was there, I promise.
I saw your little circle, and I saw that. I saw a dot. I don't know if it was a rock or a piece of dirt or trash or something. I don't know what it was, but I believe you. But that's a long way. I didn't see the ball land. When he hit it, I watched the ball for a second, and then I looked back at Cahillo to see what he was doing, and then looked back, and I never saw the ball land. But I know it was a bomb, an absolute bomb. It's a shame the TrackMan wasn't working.
They've been able to do this a few times where they can go – I don't know what kind of technology they're using, but they can kind of see where the ball landed, and they can go back and reconstruct distance on it. Now, you can't get exit velocity because I would have loved to have known the exit velocity of that ball into that wind for it to go as far as it did. But I'm hoping that maybe today or tomorrow we'll get an estimate on how far the ball went, because I think it would be a pretty impressive number.
Yeah, I'd like to see. Are you going to go out there and measure it from the fence to the picnic table?
No.
You
want to come help? We could extend the tape measure out long enough.
Hey, I'll do it.
Mark,
because I want to know. I'm stubborn. It kept me up all night that TrackMan wasn't working.
Meet me over there at 9 tomorrow morning. We'll do this.
But you know what? It was a great at bat, and when the guy threw that pitch, it was like slow motion. Yeah. You could just see the ball.
Like everything's in slow motion for him right now.
I think it is. When you're going well, the ball looks like a beach ball. Everything just, it's crazy. And in the post-game press conference yesterday, one of the reporters asked Dave if he's getting, I don't remember how they worded, like trash pitches. Are you surprised he's not getting more trash pitches? He is getting a lot of junk thrown at him, but he's taking it. He's not swinging at it. And then he's getting a good pitch, and when he gets it, he hammers it. Just like, that was a great at-bat. Fouled off a pitch, but then worked the count, finally got a pitch over the middle of the plate and hammered it.
We're going to play that soundbite here in a few minutes, by the way. I got that listed here. The first soundbite, though, that we're going to play from Dave Van Horn was about the Grand Slam and just ending Game 1 quickly, where they didn't have to stay out there very long before they got on to Game 2.
Just you never know what could happen. I told our team, I said, we could line out 3 times and play the full game, and you just never know. I said, but let's not do that. Let's find a way to get this run in. But he had a really good at bat. He fouled off some pitches, laid off some pitches, and then he got him one that was a full count. It looked like a get me over curveball. It was bell tie down the middle, and he just destroyed it. Finished it up, and I told the guys before that inning started that, if we walk them off the field, we're not going to do anything crazy because we got another game. Don't be chasing anybody out to center field and all that type of stuff. And, they got it, and they did a great job.
Yeah, it was fairly subdued reaction. They did that little thing where the 3 base runners who were on and the guy on the on-deck circle, they kind of met at the plate. But pretty much it was just, hey, walk back to the dugout and get ready for Game 2.
Yeah, no, I like that. If that were Ole Miss, they would have done cartwheels around the plate. Vandy would have stomped on the plate a few times. They'd have done a bunch of stupid stuff.
They would have done some jumping jacks.
Yeah, so yeah, I like how they handled it. But they did. They had another game to play, and so I think it's that's Dave like to tell them, hey, chill out right here. We got another game.
So when you hit a ball like that, and you may go 10 years and never see that type of situation like what played out yesterday. But when Arkansas beats them like that and you do it with this, crushing grand slam, when it looks like ULM might be able to potentially get out of the inning and take it on to 9 innings, how do you think that affected ULM in game 2? I mean, does that affect their psyche at all?
No, I don't, because I think in their mind they knew this game's not going to last very long because of just the situation. That's a really tough situation to come into. Felt weird before the game. We're sitting there in the booth and we're looking, and the Razorbacks are ready to go. They're sitting in the dugout. ULM's over there. They're sitting in their dugout. Nothing's happening. We're just like, this feels like a really weird situation. But yeah, I don't think that fazed them because I think they kind of had anticipated it. Okay,
so I want to talk about Kahia Walloy, and it's well, deals where it's like, what's left to say about what he's doing? But I dug into some numbers, and I want to go over some of these numbers with you, Bubba. First off, by playing yesterday, he actually finally qualifies for the NCAA batting lead. So he took that overnight at 556 with a 556 average, first nationally. He ranks first nationally with 2.6 RBI per game. He ranks third nationally with an 1194 slugging percentage, fourth with 26 RBI, and tied for 15th with 6 home runs. Those aren't even the crazy stats, I don't think. Here are the two that really stand out to me, maybe three. OPS fell to 1822 after that last out yesterday. It was at 1929 before that. With runners in scoring position, 15 for 22 with 24 RBI. Usually if a guy is hitting 250 to 300 with runners in scoring position, you're like, he's getting the job done. This guy's hitting 682 right now with runners in scoring position. And then just one more for you, because, he struggled with right-handers last year at BYU. We didn't know how he'd hit right-handers against right-handed pitching right now. A 615 batting average with a 1996 OPS.
That's crazy. I mean, those are like wiffle ball numbers.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like something like when you're playing that, what is it, MLB The Show?
Yeah.
And you got this, that's what it looks like he's doing.
It's incredible to see, and it's good. Hopefully, it keeps going. You got conference coming up next weekend. We got what, 4 more games till conference.
Yeah.
Hopefully he'll keep it going. But yeah, that's a good place to be when you feel that good at the plate. And like I said, he's getting his pitch. I live by the 3-pitch rule. I think every at bat you're going to get a pitch to hit. You got to be on that pitch. Pitcher has a pitch, umpire has a pitch. It's like a borderline strike, and you get a pitch. And boy, when he gets that pitch, he ain't missing it.
More impressive stat: 1822 OPS or 682 with runners in scoring position.
I always say it's not what you hit, it's when you hit. So I like the 682 with runners in scoring position. To me, that's impressive.
And I actually started looking that up because I think he didn't get the job done the first time against ULM when he came up with runners in scoring position. And I knew he'd been doing pretty well, so I looked that up, and I kind of had that written down. Well, then he gets a hit, and then he gets another hit, and then he gets a grand slam, and then he gets a 3-run home run. And I was like, holy cow, this guy. I mean, in the ULM series, he had 10 RBI in 2 games. It's unbelievable what we're seeing from him.
Yeah, it really is. And I think a lot of it goes to the depth of the lineup. You can't pitch around him. In game 1, you had Iredale hitting behind him. Game 2, you had Kendall hitting behind him, who hit one off the top of the building.
And Iredale hit a home run in game 1.
Yeah, so, I mean, you kind of pick your poison there. And I think that's what makes this lineup special is the length of this lineup. I mean, you look at it, and from top to bottom, I mean, it's pretty impressive. You got a leadoff guy that hit one halfway off the scoreboard, for a grand slam. So, I mean, it's a pretty good lineup.
So this is what Dave Van Horn had to say yesterday about Kahia Walloy and just what he continues to do at the plate.
Yeah, there was a couple of times I didn't think they would pitch to him in that second game. Obviously, he's not missing mistakes. You got to pitch him really carefully, but I think he walked once maybe, and I don't know. He's. I guess they're worried about the guy behind him, or they're just saying, hey, it's a midweek game. Let's see if we can get the guy out. maybe they didn't feel like that, that they were going to be able to keep up with us offensively, and they just went after him. I think that you have a player this hot, you got to have somebody behind him swinging it well, so he will get some pitches, and it was really good to see Kendall get into one there.
So Dave Van Horn on Kahio Aloy there, and he mentioned that, having somebody behind him to protect him. It feels like they are doing a really good job right now of whether Kahio hits fourth or fifth. We've even seen him sixth in the lineup, that they've had somebody behind him that's hitting pretty well too. Yeah,
I mean, that for me, that's the key. You got to if there's not a threat behind him, they're just going to pitch around him. Maybe he chases it, maybe he doesn't. A lot of times, though, you tell a pitcher, hey, don't give him anything to hit. Like you'll see a pitching coach go out there, first base open. They'll pitch around him. Mm-hmm. Next thing you know, you're hanging a breaking ball or you leave one fat over the middle of the plate. But I think as long as there's someone behind him that's a threat, I mean, you can't just walk him. I mean, you just can't.
So he's had some success on first pitches, but we've seen with him a lot where he's going to 2-2, 3-2, 3-1 counts. I mean, do you think that's helping the batter behind him, that they're seeing some pitches that he's taking?
Yeah, I think so. And I think that's what's been impressive to me is, like, you'll see him swing through like a fastball, foul it straight back, and he'll take one of the Kahio big hacks and foul off a couple more pitches, or maybe work the count and then get that same pitch again and not miss it the second time. And that's what good hitters do, is they make an adjustment.
I asked Dave if he could remember a DH ever hitting like this, and he couldn't remember a DH. He mentioned Ken Harvey, who hit for him at Nebraska, ended up being an all-star for the Royals one year. This would have been, I think, 99. He played for Van Horn at Nebraska, or that was his big year. He ended up being one of the finalists for the Golden Spikes Award that year. Dave said that he was hitting like 500 going into May. But I was thinking about, and Oliver Grigg, who's the SID for the baseball team, he and I were texting this morning about, like, what's the best 10-game starts for a Razorback. And for me, there's always been two players who are kind of the bar for early season success. You remember what Heston Kjerstad did before the shutdown in 2020.
Yeah.
These were his numbers: 439, a 1535 OPS, 4 doubles, 5 home runs, 13 RBI. You compare that against Kahio, a 556 average, 1822 OPS, 5 doubles, 6 homers, 26 RBI through 10 games. So basically he's doubling, at least from an RBI standpoint, and he's better in these other categories than Kjerstad was, and we thought that was going to be a potential Golden Spike season.
Yeah, you're right. But, okay, so when it comes to the RBIs, wait, do you say RBI or RBIs?
I think when I'm talking, I say RBIs just because it's, it's just a little bit more informal. Whenever I write it, I write RBI.
Okay, just checking.
What do you say?
I say RBIs.
Yeah,
because, like if I see a deer, it's not deers.
Right.
Look at all the deers. It's a deer. But when it's an RBI, it's multiple. It's RBIs.
I've heard some people who try to be a little bit too smart say RSBI, and that drives me crazy.
It does. Yeah, we actually had that talk in the booth yesterday. So, but for me, RBI is kind of a team thing. You got to have guys on base, and guys in front of him are getting on base, and a lot of times, first base is occupied, so they're pitching to him.
Okay, now the gold standard for the hottest start I've ever seen from an Arkansas hitter. Do you remember Aaron Murphy, 2008? Big right-hander, played first base, DH.
Yeah, I don't know a lot of it. I remember vaguely.
Okay, so through 10 games in 08, a 487 average, 1904 OPS, 4 doubles, 10 homers, and 24 RBI through 10 games. He actually homered in games 11 and 12, too. He had 12 home runs through 12 games that season.
It's a good start right there.
I think he had one stretch where he hit like 8 homers in 3 games. It was crazy.
That is crazy. How did he finish, though? Do you know?
Not good. No, not great. That team, everybody kind of fell off toward the end there in 2008. So, but Kahio is doing, kind of what Aaron Murphy did in 2008, and I wasn't sure we'd ever see that again.
Yeah, it has been impressive. It's fun. I mean, you love a good story like that. And, something I haven't talked to Kahio about, I want to ask him, he was a pitcher. So being a pitcher and moving to a hitter, I wonder if that helps him at all, because I pitched back in the day. But then when I got in a pro ball, I stayed away from pitchers because they were the enemy. So, and then I realized the best way to understand them is to room with one. So I actually roomed with a pitcher so I could get to know them better. But I wonder if that helps Kuhio being a pitcher in college for a year and then switching to hitter, flipping it, because I tell my pitchers.
Just use the game differently.
Yeah, when I tell my pitchers, when you step on the mound, I said, you control the plate. And I tell my hitters, when you step up to the plate, you control it, not the pitcher. So I wonder if that helps him, or if there's any thought process at all.
Did you notice that the Hawaiians were just going off yesterday?
Yeah.
During this whole series, midweek. During the midweek, Kuhio, Vahiva, and Nolan Souza, they combined 13 for 26, 3 walks, 4 doubles, 3 homers, 9 runs, 15 RBIs.
It's pretty good. So here's a funny story. I go down to the dugout yesterday, and I was going to do Charles Davalon as the player of the game. Mm-hmm. He had already gone up the tunnel, so there were 3 guys there, Kuhio, Vahiva, and Nolan. They're all standing there. And I said, "Does anyone want to do the post game?" And
none of them.
They're all pointing at the other one. Well, he did this, and then he would point at him and say, "Well, he did this," and they're all pointing at each other. And it's neat to see. They're all so modest, but they're all pointing at the other guy saying, "Well, he had a great game. He did this," and so anyway, I ended up talking to Nolan. So
talking too, right?
Yeah. No, I tell you what,
they're so quiet.
I enjoy talking. I like talking to all 3 of them. They're funny. I'll tell you, when you get Kuhio and Vahiva together and you get them going against each other, they're a lot of fun to talk to. But Nolan and I had a good talk yesterday. He talked about simplifying his swing and everything, so it was fun.
They all played so well yesterday. I actually Googled just to see if I got a hit. Like, was it like some sort of like holiday or something in Hawaii? Because Tuesday was Fat Tuesday. I mean, if they got some big celebration or something in Hawaii on that Wednesday, and they did not. Although I did find some interesting Hawaiian holidays that I might have to do something about a little bit later in the season. You mentioned Nolan, and he had the home run that ends Game 2. And I just, I said this on the radio yesterday morning. Somebody was asking me about him. I said, it just looks like he has figured something out with his swing. Mm-hmm. Even the outs were, number one, not a lot of strikeouts here. Right. And it's a small sample, but over the last few games, not a lot of strikeouts. And a lot of the outs were hard hit outs. So he has a good day yesterday. Obviously ends it with that home run. It just feels like maybe he's figured something out. And he mentioned to you, he mentioned in the press conference afterward that he and Nate Thompson have been working a lot on keeping his head still during his load. And it seems like that's paying off. Yeah,
I think so. We talked a little bit before and after the interview about that, and he said he just made some adjustments to kind of simplify the swing. He said he had too much movement with his head. He's trying to get his hands a little closer to the launch position, so there's not as much movement before the swing. So I like all those things, and that just goes to show you. And people, I think sometimes that's why I get frustrated, Matt, is when someone's struggling, people just pounce on them. Mm-hmm. They don't realize how hard it is. It's a hard game, and how hard these guys work, and how hard the coaching staff works, because no one's been frustrated. And then he has hit some balls really hard that have been caught lately, so you're like, it kind of just starts to add on. But boy, he stuck with it, kept working, and hopefully he looked like he was in a good place yesterday.
Do you think it's harder to come out of a slump now than it was when you played? Because you didn't have to play with social media. And you can tell these guys, hey, ignore it, turn it off, delete it from your phone, whatever. That's a lot easier said than done.
I think so, because everyone knows everything about you. So, I think we talked about it on Monday. I was a notorious slow starter. I'd go into conference play every year hitting 200. Everyone else is hitting 500 or 600.
What would somebody tweet at you in 1988 if they could?
Oh, get him out of the lineup. why are you playing him? Coach D, find somebody else.
Could you imagine Norm on Twitter?
No, I can't imagine that.
Go ahead.
That would be fun to see, but yeah.
This is what Dave Van Horn had to say about Nolan Souza and how his play is coming along the last week or so.
Nolan and Coach Thompson went in and made some adjustments, changed it, stood him up a little bit. He'd probably give you a few more details, but they've worked hard together, and I agree with you, though. This game is so mental, and make an adjustment, you get a hit, start feeling better about yourself, standing in the batter's box and confident. And he's definitely swinging the bat with a lot more authority and confidence since that base hit.
That base hit being the hit that started the ninth inning rally against Charlotte on Sunday, and Nolan obviously ended up scoring the winning run there. It's good for them because I was thinking when he gets on base, and he drew a couple of walks yesterday. When he gets on base, I think he's their most talented base runner.
Dude can fly, and he's a good base runner. I know Dave said something in the postgame. I watched him at second base towards the end of that game, and he wanted to steal third. He was timing the pitcher up, and you love to see that out of a base runner. But when it comes to a swing, Matt, there's so much that goes into a swing. Like every frame, like one frame can affect your swing, and a lot of guys have a lot of slack. I call it slack in the swing. It's excess movement before you launch your swing, and just cleaning up a frame or two here or there can totally change you. It turns a ground ball to second into a line drive off the scoreboard. So it's crazy how it works.
I understand some of this is about who they played, and they're going to play better teams moving forward. But it feels like in the moment, it doesn't feel like there's as many holes in the lineup as maybe we felt like there were 10 days ago.
No, there's not. There's this is a tough lineup now. From top to bottom, and then you look at what's on the bench. It's a tough job for Dave to make out a lineup. There's a lot of different directions he can go. I look at a guy like Carson Bowles, and I still love his approach at the plate. And it's hard to get guys like that in at bat. And there's other guys on the bench that are kind of the same. It's just hard to get everyone at bats, and it's a good problem to have. But it goes back to what we talked about Monday. It frees Dave up to be able to make moves when he wants to make a move, whether it's pinch hitting Pepe in the fourth inning or whatever. They're able to do a lot more things offensively, and it's fun to watch.
I want to go back to Tuesday's game real quick because there were a lot of people that wondered, why do you not just call that game? Why do you suspend it and restart it on Wednesday?
Well, okay, so if you call it, you got to go back to the inning before, the previous inning. So you look at a guy like Nolan. Nolan loses that base hit. So you just go ahead and you just
ULM loses a run too because they had gotten a run in the bottom or in the top of the seventh.
Yeah, so Cole Gibbler would he would love to have.
Love to knock that off the stat line.
But yeah, I think that's why you just continue where you picked up, and I like it like that. I used to hate it. I know there was one year I had 3 or 4 home runs taken away on games that were either canceled, like in the third inning or fourth inning, and it was just like, can we not just pick this game up where we left it off?
There's something to be said too, I think, for the coaches and the players too, like wanting to have some sort of, I don't know what the word is, basically to finish it the right way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, I think about like Vaheva, he knows he's leading off. So I'd have been foaming at the mouth all night knowing that I get to lead off the next day with runners to second and third. And I knew they were going to walk somebody. I didn't know if they would take their chance against Vaheva, let him hit, and then walk Maxwell, which they ended up doing. But I knew at some point someone was going to get walked, and I didn't know if they were going to lead off and walk to load up the bases initially or take their chances. And it ended up, they pitched to Vaheva. It's so hard. I get the Aloys confused sometimes. So we need like nicknames for both of them.
I've heard some people calling him Aloy Senior and Aloy Junior, which doesn't make any sense to me, but that's what I've heard.
Yeah, I don't know. My wife calls Kuhio Cujo.
Did you notice? So when that lightning strike hit and Souza's running into third, the umpires were going to let it keep going. They weren't going to say anything.
Yeah.
They wanted to try to get that over if they could. And then, the game official steps out. It's like, we got to get them off the field. A couple of the umpires, by the way, during that series, Seth Buckminster and Mark Wagers, those are World Series umpires. Those are guys who you see in June quite a bit.
Yeah, it's good. The strike zone was good. I thought they did a good job. It got a little bit bigger in a couple of those games, which I don't like. I don't like it when the zone gets bigger as the score, the margin gets wider. I don't like the strike zone getting bigger because, let's say you're a guy coming off the bench, and I know this is a different topic you didn't want to talk about, but if you're a guy coming off the bench, let's just say Carson Bowles coming up and you get the pinch hit late in the game, it's a 9-10 run game, and the umpire's like, well, I'm going to open up the zone a little bit. No, you're not, because this dude's fighting for a job. Let him have an at-bat.
I felt bad for those people pulling the tarp. Hailstones on the tarp. That rain came down fast, and it just got too heavy for him to move. You got any good tarp pulling stories?
Well, okay, so back in the day, we had phone tree. Back in the day, so we had to go put the tarp on. So we'd get calls at 5 a.m. to go put the tarp on the field, or maybe late at night, and you had to answer the phone. It wasn't optional. So
this is when you were in college.
This is U of A. Coach D. It was a phone tree. So someone would call you, you'd call the next guy, and if you couldn't get a hold of that guy, you had to skip down to the next guy and call him. But you had to be there to put the tarp on. And I guarantee you, DVH will remember these days where we put the tarp on by ourselves. And there were times, you get up early in the morning, 5 a.m., a storm's coming in, you got to go put the tarp on, and it just sucked. I hated doing it. It'd be freezing cold, you're still half asleep. But, in the minor leagues, there were times where you see the tarp blown completely off the field. I played Colorado Springs, and it is so windy there. Yeah. And there were times where the poor tarp crew, and we're out there trying to help them because we want to play. Sometimes we were a little slow to get out there, but it's funny some of the stuff that happens. I mean, you could watch a whole highlight reel, like you YouTube it sometime, and there's some hilarious things that goes on with the tarp crew
because those things get heavy.
Yeah, well, the minute it started pouring down rain, they were messing around with a little mat at home plate, and I told Nick Batters on the air, I said, "There's no way they are going to get that tarp on because you could tell it was already covered up with rain. Then it started hailing, and they started pulling on it. And the first guy out of the dugout was Kozel.
Yeah,
Kozel goes out there, no helmet on, and it's hailing, and I'm like, that's my dude. I love that guy. He's my kind of player right there. He's the kind of guy that's going to drink out a water hose for you. I love that kind of guy.
Apparently he's a pretty good football player up in Nebraska. And I'm seeing it, just in like the contact that he's taken and that situation right there. We got a lot more baseball to come. We're going to talk about Portland and this weekend series, plus Dave Van Horn's thoughts on Gabe Gankel. We'll talk about some of these pitcher injuries and much more coming up after this word from our sponsors.
At Kindle King, we're proud of over 4 decades of design. We're continuing the legacy of great creative design by combining our brands of Kindle King, Soapbox, and Shopcart. Together, these brands represent a new focus in marketing design with individual attention to specific areas. Through our design expertise supported by a team of talented professionals, we showcase our best. We are Kindle King, we are Soapbox, we are Shopcart, we are design.
Hey, welcome back. I want to tell you about our friends at Bentonville Glass. They've been serving their community since 1971. Committed, professional, and versatile. If you're looking for a quality leader in Northwest Arkansas or looking for skilled craftsmanship, look no further than Bentonville Glass. For all your glass market needs with the highest quality products, you can come by and see them right now at 507 South Main in Bentonville or online at bentonvilleglass.com. I want to tell you, too, you can get the latest breaking news on all Razorback sports at wholehogsports.com. Analysis, latest in recruiting, unique stories on all your favorite teams. Subscribe today at wholehogsports.com. You can find our podcast on Apple. Just search Whole Hog Sports. We post a video version on YouTube, and we post that each day to our social media on Facebook and Twitter. Just search Whole Hog Sports on any of those platforms. Arkansas back at Baum tomorrow against Portland. The nickname? Oh, come on. You remember this? I told you last night.
Yeah, I wasn't listening.
They're the Pilots.
That's right.
The Portland Pilots.
My bad. I got to do a better job. So you and I are getting to know each other way better now. So sometimes I do to you. I'm listening, but I'm not hearing.
Yeah, no, I completely understand that. Portland comes in here with a 5-8 record. They played Washington on Tuesday night in Seattle and lost that game 3-0. Portland flew into Fayetteville last night. They're working out in Fayetteville today. I think they're getting some weightlifting done over at the Razorbacks facility at some point this afternoon. They play in the West Coast Conference. That's the same conference as San Diego, as Gonzaga. And they'll be in here Friday, 3 o'clock, Saturday at 2, Sunday at noon. Portland was projected to finish second in their conference this year. Dave Van Horn was asked after last night's game what he knew about Portland, which, granted, he's been focusing on other teams. Not a whole lot in that moment, but here's what he had to say.
As far as Portland, all we know is we've watched them a couple times this week playing. We've got some of their games that been dissecting a little bit. They pitched really well a couple games. They've had some games that didn't go well. We don't, but again, it's like I tell our players, just as long as we take care of our business, play good defense, which we've been doing. We haven't been giving away runs or extra bats, and continue to get better. Then that's what we can control anyway. So let's just worry about that.
Portland going to start tomorrow night. Carter Gaston, he is a right-hander. He's the reigning pitcher of the year in the West Coast Conference, and he was a preseason All-American. But he's a different kind of right-hander. I was reading about him, Bubba, on a D1 baseball report, and they said that last year, and I haven't seen any numbers for this year, but last year he had 2 fastballs that hit 90 miles an hour.
So you know what that tells you? That means he's got a really good changeup.
Yep.
So, and guys like that are frustrating. Look at Charlotte. We just got in facing Charlotte, and those guys threw a ton of changeups. So those are the kind of guys that you don't like facing. That they just know how to pitch.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? They mix in some changeups, and that 90-mile-an-hour fastball or 88, whatever it is, looks like 95 after a good changeup. So for me, I say all the time, the changeup's a great equalizer.
The last time I think Arkansas played a West Coast Pitcher of the Year, I need to look this up, but I'm pretty sure that this is going to be right. 2013, Marco Gonzalez from Gonzaga, who ends up being really good, major league pitcher. I was there. It was in Surprise, Arizona, on the backfields of the Royals and Rangers spring training complex, and this guy threw a complete game shutout against Arkansas.
I remember that. I want to say I was listening on the radio, but I remember that. Yep. I remember that game, thinking, "Why aren't we hitting this guy?"
They're pretty good.
So, yeah.
Turned out to be pretty good.
Yeah, worked out pretty well for them.
That wasn't a good weekend for Arkansas either. They were I think they were number 1 or 2 in the polls, and they went 0-4. Yeah, they got walked off by Pacific in front of 40 people on what looked like a little league field. I mean, it was.
Yeah.
That was. I thought. Hey, we're going to Surprise. We're going to this spring training complex. This is gonna be grand. And when they played Arizona State, they played them 2 times that weekend. They played them in the spring training ballpark, which is nice. 9,000-10,000 seats. Looks very similar, comparable to what we've got here at Baum. But then they played Gonzaga and Pacific, and I'm telling you, it looked like watching an 11-year-old Little League game.
Well, it sucks when you're used to playing at Baum Walker and you go out there and you're expecting to play in this nice complex. They throw you on the back fields. We used to have a joke in spring training. We'd call each other I was backfield Bubba. We all want to take BP on the main field, but it doesn't always work like that. So a lot of times you end up on if you're a non-roster invite to Major League Camp, you're excited. You're going to Major League Camp. You want to hit on the main field, and a lot of times you end up on the backfield. And so, playing a game, I'm sure it's a huge letdown for the guys. But no matter what, you still got to go out there and compete. I'm sure they did, but things happen.
Yeah, it was an interesting experience. Arkansas is going to keep the same rotation this weekend. Gabe Gackle in Game 1, Zach Root in Game 2, Landon Beidelshees in Game 3. Really no surprise there. I didn't think that they were going to change this up at all, but they do need to have a good start from Gabe Gackle, I think, to keep him in this Friday role.
I think so, and I think they identified a couple things, made a couple more adjustments. I know they had moved him over to the first base side of the rubber. we'll see what they've done. I think they've probably moved him back over a little bit. I think he's going to come out and be great, Matt. I really do. And a guy like Gabe, he's a tough pitcher. He's a competitor. We talk about all week, you know how hard that is for a guy like that gave up. He's never given up 9 runs in his life. Yeah. It's been a long week for Gabe. And, boy, I just hope he comes out and shoves on Friday. And I think he's going to.
Yeah, it was Parker Coyle who made a comment after one of the Charlotte games the other day. They said he's pissed off, and I would hate to be Portland next week. And it reminded me of something that Cody Frank told me last year after the James Madison game.
Yep.
He said, Hagan is pissed.
Right.
I would hate to be Oregon State on Friday. And we know what he did on that Friday night.
Yeah. So I think and that says a lot about him as a competitor. So, yeah, I would not want to be Portland because I think he's going to be great.
We'll see if Gabe can have a Hagan-type bounce-back performance. Hagan was obviously a real special pitcher. This is what Dave Van Horn said yesterday when I asked him about Gabe Gackle and how he's handling this from a confidence standpoint because, like Bubba said, there's a pretty good chance he's never gone through anything like this before.
I think he's handled it really well. I mean, he's upset with himself, and he's a hard worker. He's a dedicated kid, man. He wants to win, and he wants to be as good as he can be, and he's got a lot of pride. And I look forward to watching him pitch on Friday. I think he'll have a really good outing.
Portland, as you look at their offensive stats, and I know that you were looking at them as well, they're not stats that just strike a lot of fear into you. It feels like if the pitchers are on this weekend, it could be a really nice weekend for Arkansas from that standpoint.
Yeah, I think so. It looks like to me it's going to be a team they're not going to hit the ball out of the yard a lot. I think they've got 11 home runs right now. Mm-hmm. I think they're 14 for 18 stolen bases. So I think it's going to be a tough matchup for them as hitters facing our staff, facing our whole staff, starter, bullpen, everything. I think it's going to be tough, but got to go out and play the game, see what happens. And you don't know the conditions. Mm-hmm. Friday looks good. Saturday looks a little iffy, a little north wind again. So when you get that wind blowing out, anything can happen.
You ever played in a game as windy as it was yesterday?
Yeah.
I know you said you played in Colorado Springs.
Yeah, in Colorado Springs. We actually got winded out in Colorado Springs.
Winded out.
Winded out. Blue skies, winded out. It was blowing signs off the outfield. There was like a wind tornado out on the infield, stuff flying everywhere. It was the craziest thing I've ever seen. But, yeah, blue skies, we got winded out.
As like a left-handed hitter, you go up there on a day like yesterday and it's blowing 40 miles an hour out to center and right. I mean, are your eyes getting real big?
Absolutely. And that's what's so impressive about this. You know how you do not – when the wind's blowing out 40 miles an hour to center field, as a hitter, you don't want to walk. And – for these guys to go up there and take 13 walks, it says a lot about them. I mean, just their patience because, you want to swing. You're facing pitching that you feel like you're going to crush. All you got to do is get it up in the air. It's like one of those days you want to pad your stats, so you try to do too much. And when you do that, you end up going 0 for 4 on a day that you should have you shouldn't have happened.
Did you have your windows open yesterday for the game with the wind?
Well, no.
You closed them.
We closed them.
There was one window open in the press box, and I was afraid I was going to get one of those flying paper cuts. You know, talk about the right there across your face.
So in all the games I've done, it's the first time we kept the windows closed. I'd like to blame it on Nick, but I'm not going to. I said, well, it's up to you, whatever you want to do. And he said, well, it's up to you, whatever you want to do. So we kept them closed. Phil took the heater out. And it gets really cold in that booth. And when I went out to do the interview after the game, because you're looking at it's a blue sky. Mm-hmm. It looked like an 80-degree day, but I went out on the field to do the interview, and I didn't have a coat on, and it's cold.
You're cold, yeah.
And so it was, I was glad no one got hurt. I was worried about guys like pulling a hammy or something happening. When it's cold like that, the cold temperature doesn't get you, but that wind.
It sounded like Little House on the Prairie up in the press box yesterday. That whoosh of the wind a few times. It was a little spooky.
Did you watch that back in the day?
I've watched a few episodes. Yeah.
Would have never thought that.
I watched an episode where they took like a pig bladder and turned it into a ball and threw it back and forth to each other.
Did they?
Yeah.
I missed that episode.
Did you ever do that in Brentwood?
No. We did use Cow, how can I say it nicely?
Dung?
Yeah, dung.
Yeah.
Poo as a hockey puck.
Okay.
When the pond would freeze over, that was our hockey puck. We'd go find a crooked limb and cow crap, and there we go. Play ball. We played with our work boots on, so yeah. You learned something new about me.
You played hockey with your work boots and a crooked stick.
Well, I'm
and cow dung.
Yeah, we didn't have skates. Are you kidding me?
Didn't have any frozen ponds in Brentwood either, right? Hey, so Arkansas, I wanted to ask you about this because Dave talked about this on Monday at Swatters Club. They're 4-1 right now in one-run games, and I say this in every sport. How you do in close games really determines, are you a good team, or are you a great team, and so on and so forth. And right now, and we'll see how this goes when the competition gets better. But right now, I think that they've got a good feeling about being in these close games, and just there's a comfort playing in those.
I think so. I love the Charlotte series. I really did. I love the way the games went back and forth. I think that's really good for us. Good teams find a way to win those games. Bad teams find a way to lose, and we continue to find a way to win. And that's something that, it doesn't matter who you're playing. It's the ability to answer back when that other team scores, get the big hit, make the big play on defense, pitchers make the big pitch. I mean, that's what it takes to win those games, and we're doing it. I love it.
Dave also gave an update on Monday on Hunter Dietz, and he's going to throw today to live hitters, probably about 20 pitches, maybe indoors, but he's going to get on the mound against live hitters today, and then give a promising update on Gage Wood. Said that he's already throwing a baseball. Obviously, they're going to still take their time to get him back, but it feels like both of these pitchers are going to factor into their pitching plans probably sooner than later.
I think so. Like when they said 3 to 5 weeks with Gage, I'm like, okay, that means 2 weeks. He's gonna be driving them nuts wanting to throw. So you got to rein him back. And Hunter Dietz, I'm glad they're bringing him along slow. There's no need to rush him right now. I mean, we're gonna need him in June. So I want him 100% because that dude, when he's healthy, he's the real deal. And you think about it, getting him back, getting Gage back. Oh my goodness, that's pretty good. That's pretty special. There's some really good arms, and then I like everyone they threw. I tell you what, Dylan Carter's been great. Dylan's been great. Tate McGuire, I love the way he pitches, pounds his zone. Aiden Jimenez looks mean on the mound. I love his mound presence. Even Cole Gibbler looked really good. He just left one ball over the plate. But his stuff is good. That slider he throws is nasty. I mean, the ball's bouncing on the plate and dudes are swinging at it. So, I mean, there's just so much. McIntyre came in, threw some really good fastballs in, and then threw the cutter. I don't know. I feel really good. Now, once again, we have not – and I was going over the SEC stats, and there's some pretty good offensive numbers being thrown up right now. So we're not in the SEC yet, but – I like what I see so far.
Okay, so I want to talk about that because next week is when SEC plays. I just wanted to kind of peek ahead a little bit to what's going on in the SEC. You got 2 undefeated teams, Alabama and Tennessee. Tennessee, they played in Houston, and they played some good competition there. But when I see the numbers they put up, I tend to kind of step back a little bit and say, look, they're playing Radford. They're playing, the competition that they schedule in the non-conference. It's one thing to schedule, these mid-major, low-major teams, but it feels like the type of teams they schedule are teams that aren't even competitive really in mid and low-major conferences. And so that's not to take anything away from Tennessee. I think I'm sure they're a great team this year. It's just when I see that they've hit 7 grand slams and 36 home runs in 12 games, I don't know how much I don't know how much stock I put into that. Same thing with Alabama. Their schedule, it feels like Alabama is always like the March All-Stars.
Right.
And, they're 14-0 or 17-1 or something, and then conference play hits and they win 10 games. And so we'll see if this is different for them this year. But they do have that shortstop, Justin LeBron, who Baseball America just came out with their 26 draft rankings. They got him number 1, and he's putting up some ridiculous numbers this year.
You're right about Alabama, though. Every year they get off to a ridiculous start, and if the season ended then, they'd be national champs every year. Tennessee, we know Tennessee can hit, but I agree. I think I feel like the teams we're playing are at a higher caliber than what they played. But they do that every year, and
it works for them.
I mean, they like having big offensive numbers, and then they get good pitching to go with it too. And LSU, I mean, pitching staffs are really good. Lineups pretty good. I mean, if you look at the numbers, but I like where we're at right now. We're in the middle of the pack, offensive and pitching, and I want to say even Dave even said that we don't care if we're number one right now. You know, I think we're in a good place, and I see us getting better.
And I think his point on Monday was that if you are number one in batting average or you're number one in ERA right now, there's really nowhere else to go.
Right.
But, you know, I mean, like there's not a lot of room to improve. I mean, you can compete against yourself, I guess. But I understand what he's saying, that, you know, they want to improve. They want to kind of have something to strive for and reach for.
Well, I'll tell you, I was impressed with Davlon in yesterday's game. Game 2 of ULM. I thought he did a better job of getting pitches in the zone, drew a couple walks. I like that about him in the leadoff role. I thought he was getting a little too aggressive, rolling over too many balls to the right side. I thought he did a really good job of getting on base. And I think it's important for him to be on base with Vaheva up. It's all about putting a lineup together, and I think Dave is awesome at putting a lineup together, because with Davlon on base, Vaheva's going to get more fastballs. You know, I mean, it is what it is. Because Davlon will steal. Or if you lead off Justin Thomas the same, you want someone on first base with Vaheva up so he can get fastballs. You know, I don't know. I think he's an important, you know, piece to this. Of course, I mean, that's master of the obvious, your leadoff guy getting on. But I think it's real important what Davlon does at the top of the lineup.
One more SEC note real quick. A&M, 7-5. And, you know, they played down in Houston, good teams down there. But they've lost some midweek games. And they lost Gavin Grohovac, their third baseman, about a week and a half ago to a shoulder injury. And he's not going to play anymore this year. And it just feels like sometimes when you get that kind of devastating news, it can really send a team into a funk for a little while. And I think that may be what's happening a little bit with them.
And you watch him play, and you know, you and I talked about it. I hate to see a guy go down like that. I mean, he's a great player. I love the way he plays the game. He plays hard. He plays tough. I was real impressed with him last year as a freshman. You know, just the way he played the game. So you hate to see that. But you're right. One guy going down like that can affect that lineup, especially a guy that brings his toughness and that grittiness that he brings to the game.
And they had that number one next to their name in the preseason. I mean, everybody had A&M number one. And we've seen that here. When you're number one, you get just a little bit extra from the teams that you're playing.
Do you buy into the whole number one jinx?
I don't know if I buy into a jinx, but I think that there's some pressure that goes along with when you have that, you know, associated with yourself.
I don't think the players feel the pressure. I think the team that you're playing rises to another level when they're playing another. It doesn't matter if you're playing Charlotte, Portland, you know, ULM, whoever. I think anytime you're playing the number one team in the nation, you play different. There's just and baseball's so mental. You want to beat that team. And you want to win every game, but I just think it's just that little mental edge that comes with it. And I don't think like I said, I don't think it affects our players. I think it affects the opponent that you're playing.
I think Arkansas would be just fine if LSU and Tennessee stayed 1-2 for a little while.
I do too.
I think they're happy laying there in that 3-4 range.
Yep.
So,
keep it up.
Bubba, appreciate you being here. I'd shake your hand, but I'm afraid you played hockey this morning. But Arkansas and Portland this weekend. First pitch tomorrow at 3 o'clock over at Baum-Walker Stadium. You can hear Bubba on the Razorback Sports Network. Obviously, we'll have coverage on our website at wholehogsports.com. When we come back, Anthony Kristensen's going to be in here. We'll talk Razorback basketball, but first, another word from our sponsors.
At Kindle King, we're proud of over 4 decades of design. We're continuing the legacy of great creative design by combining our brands of Kindle King, Soapbox, and Shopcart. Together, these brands represent a new focus in marketing design with individual attention to specific areas. Through our design expertise supported by a team of talented professionals, we showcase our best. We are Kindle King, we are Soapbox, we are Shop Cart, we are Design.
Hey, welcome back. We're joined by Anthony Kristensen here in studio now. Anthony just got back last night from Nashville, watching Arkansas beat Vanderbilt 90-77 on Tuesday night, maybe / Wednesday morning. That game, it was late.
I didn't feel the effects of that game yesterday morning, but this morning when I woke up,
yeah, it was a late game, long drive there, long drive back. I know you've been on the road quite a bit. So, I mean, as you've had a couple of days to reflect now on what they did Tuesday night, just your thoughts on how big of a win this was for them.
it was as big of a win as they could get in that spot. I mean, they not only did they win the game, but they won it pretty convincingly on both sides of the ball. Obviously, we talked about the defense the other day, just forcing turnovers and forcing Vanderbilt into that 1 of 16 shooting stretch in the end period of the first half. So it's not only that they got the win, which that's obviously the most important thing, but to win in a pretty convincing manner. I don't remember many times in the second half where Vanderbilt got it back to within single digits. Maybe that's my memory being foggy because I was fighting for my life to stay awake. But but I mean, it was a convincing win. Like, I mean, that's big on the road against a very good Vanderbilt team. Obviously, a quad 1 win, and I wouldn't necessarily say it offsets the South Carolina game, just because obviously that was a loss of disastrous proportions. But it certainly goes a long way, especially with, I think, like we mentioned the other day, some bubble teams also losing as well. So I think not only is the result important in just by itself, but in the just kind of the landscape of where the bubble is, I think that also makes it all the more important. And yeah, I mean, it's huge, basically.
Was this your first time to Vanderbilt?
It was, man. I loved that arena. I know that's not a very popular take, but like I loved it.
Their whole athletic complex is unique because the football stadium is connected to the basketball arena, is connected to the baseball stadium. So like to just kind of give you an idea, the baseball stadium on the third base side, it shares a concourse with the football stadium. So, like, you're going to the bathrooms or you're going to the concession stands in the football stadium, even though you are at the baseball game. And that's the only place you can go to do that, at the baseball stadium, because on the other side of the baseball stadium, it's right along a city street, and there's nothing built over there on that side. And then, like, the baseball offices and, like, a workout area, it overlooks the baseball stadium from the outfield, but it's actually part of Memorial Gymnasium.
That's fantastic.
And
I love that, I think.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's
it's different.
It's the burden of building athletic complexes inside of an urban area.
Yeah, big city.
And so it's a really unique setup that they have there at Vanderbilt. If you've never been there, I would recommend going there and seeing it at least once. But you liked you liked the arena.
I did. I liked it a lot. And
is it a new thing? Because I don't remember this. I think it's a new thing that the coaches can go out on the sideline.
I think you're right.
At Vanderbilt,
it's a new thing
because used to they had to stay
on the baseline.
Out on the baseline.
I think you're right that is a new thing, but I loved it. I don't know why I liked it so much. Maybe it's just because you go to a basketball arena. A lot of them are kind of similar. I mean, there's not a lot of. I mean, I don't want to say there's not a lot of personality in a lot of places because there's
character
different
at Vanderbilt.
things. Yeah, like. I mean, South Carolina was like half full, but they still did the sandstorm thing, and I was like, this would be way cooler if it was full.
But to your point about South Carolina, when they built Colonial Life Arena, they came to Fayetteville, and they ripped off
Bud Walton. So it was almost like stepping
if you go
into
in
the same thing.
Exactly, exactly.
I was like, oh, this looks familiar.
Yeah, it's like when I was a kid, I used to watch Darkwing Duck. You ever watch Darkwing Duck?
I have not.
Well, Darkwing Duck, he's got purple and these colors, and then he's got like this villain, and it's basically the same duck. He just wears different colors. That's kind of what it is, Colonial Life Arena with Bud Walton. You walk in there, and instead of cardinal red seats, you've got garnet seats.
Yeah, no, that's no knock on Colonial Life. I thought it was a pretty neat arena. I liked it. pretty decent game day environment for it being, obviously, South Carolina being what it is this season, and stinking. But pretty good game day environment. I was like, if this place was full, if I were here for a women's game, because they packed that place out for that women's team, and rightfully so, like I was like, this place would be awesome. But Vanderbilt, like I think that building was like originally like a theater.
Yeah.
So like obviously like some of the seating is like below the court, which I kind of loved. I loved stepping down off the court when I was down there. That was fun, and it was loud. Like it was pretty loud. Not like deafening, but like I mean it was a 9 p.m. tip, so I mean it wasn't like sold out or anything. But like when everybody was getting into the game, it was like a really nice, like really good environment. And I was like, man, this place rocks. It's unique. The baseline benches, I can't get over the baseline benches. Obviously, I saw it on TV, but to see it in person, it's like,
Yeah, it's different.
Fantastic.
One regular season game left for Arkansas. They play Mississippi State on Saturday. It's going to be an 11 o'clock tip-off on SEC Network
God
over at Bubba Arena.
bless an early tip.
I mean, I said this yesterday. I think they're going to get a great crowd in there Saturday. It's one last chance to really try to push these guys across the finish line. What do you expect to see in this game?
I expect to see, I mean, Mississippi State is obviously as much of a lock as you can probably be unless your name is Auburn. Not to say, I mean, or any of those top teams, I guess, in terms of the SEC. Mississippi State, I worded that very poorly. Mississippi State's in the tournament, for lack of a better term. So they should be fine. It'll be interesting to see how Mississippi State tries to bounce back from the Texas game, because Mississippi State has now lost 3 of its last 4. So that'll be interesting, because I mean this is going to be an important game for seeding for them, right? They don't want to end up on the 8-9 line. They'd probably like to be a 6 or a 7. So that'll be interesting to see. As for what I expect, I mean Mississippi State earlier on in the season was more offensive than we kind of picture Chris Jan's teams to be, at least based on past precedent. Not to say that they aren't, because I mean Josh Hubbard is fantastic, and Cam Matthews and all those guys, they very fun to watch, more fun to watch than most Chris Jan's teams, I think. And that's not a knock on Chris Jan's. Obviously, he wins everywhere he goes. New Mexico State, now Mississippi State. But I would expect to see, maybe Mississippi State try to slow the game down a little bit, try to play, keep Arkansas at a slow pace, because I think at times in the Vanderbilt game, especially when Vanderbilt was turning the ball over, Arkansas got out in transition pretty well. So I think that's kind of something you're going to see, but I think Arkansas also can and maybe wants to play a little bit of a slower game. So maybe there is that, but yeah, Mississippi State does play a lot faster on offense than most Chris Jan's teams have in the past. So I expect maybe to see a little bit of a mixture of that.
It's been weird this year to see some of these teams that you expect to have like that slow pace of play. Like Wisconsin for years and years, they were grind it out.
It's like
brutal to watch basketball. And now they're scoring 85, 90 points.
The Greg Gard revolution there. It's crazy. Because I remember I was really low on Wisconsin coming into the season. I remember I texted my friend, Wisconsin has built a roster I would have been really excited about 3 years ago with John Tonje and Cameron Hunter. But I mean, those guys have been fantastic. John Tonje is arguably an All-American, and he's been fantastic. Not to go too far in on Wisconsin.
I got to rein you back in here. But whatever I was going with this was that Mississippi State, similar deal, because we've seen Chris Jans both at Mississippi State and then Arkansas played maybe the most molasses NCAA tournament game ever.
I remember watching that. Yeah,
when he was in New Mexico State, it was like 53
to
48.
It was like 40. Yeah, it's
and I mean, so it's been interesting to watch Mississippi State, their style be so much different than what you would expect from that coaching staff this year.
Yeah, no, and it's been fun. I mean, it's been getting the most out of Josh Hubbard, who is, I mean, he's fantastic. He gives short guys hope. I think he's like 5'11", listed at 5'11". And I mean, I know how these basketball listings work. They always add an inch or two. If I were on a basketball roster, I'd be listed at 6 foot. I'm 5'9", so or 5'11" maybe. But yeah, it's interesting to see. I mean, they play at a quick pace. RJ Melendez is a lot of fun. He's been around for a long time too. And then obviously Josh Hubbard is who that offense is built around, and he gets to the line a lot, and he converts his free throws at a high rate. He's a 3-level scorer, and the team is really and rightly, built around him. And, yeah, they're fun to watch, which you don't really – yeah.
Quick note before we get out of here. Arkansas women's basketball loses to Georgia yesterday 79-74 at the FCC tournament out in Greenville, South Carolina. Arkansas blew an 11-point lead after halftime. Their season is over. Izzy Higginbottom broke the single-season school record for scoring during that game yesterday, broke Chelsea Dungy's record that, probably a lot of people thought may never get broken.
And I think games,
I think she did it in 6 fewer games than Dungy did, which is incredible.
It's crazy. Yeah.
But one last data point for Izzy to show the coaches that she deserved to be on All SEC.
Yeah, no, I remember I saw that and I was like, oh, that's surprising. And then the more you look at like the numbers and everything, and obviously Arkansas stunk just as a team, obviously. Mm-hmm. So obviously, I'm sure that's why. But when you look at like the numbers, just like the leading scorer in the conference, and put like set genuine record-setting numbers for Arkansas and everything like that, I was surprised that I was very surprised that she didn't at least end up on second team. I mean, it's like I covered Evansville, who went 5-27, and they ended up getting a guy on the third team in the Missouri Valley tournament or Missouri Valley a couple years ago, and I was like, oh, that's a pity vote, I guess. Not just because he was very good.
To me, if you lead your conference in scoring, you deserve to be all conference.
Yes, absolutely.
It's like it should be an automatic.
Yes, I would. Yeah, 100% agree with that.
It'd be like leaving Trey Johnson off the All SEC men's basketball team this year.
Yeah, which is not happening, I don't think.
No, I think you're right. Yeah, he's going to be on there.
He's very good at basketball, and Izzy Higginbottom also very good at basketball. And I was very surprised to see that. I think I saw it. I mean, whenever it came out, was it yesterday, right, or was it 2 days ago? 2 days ago. Yeah, the days kind of run together in my head. I think I've said that a couple of times, but yeah, I remember I saw that. I was like, oh, interesting. That's weird. And then the more you look at like the numbers, and Ethan had a really good commentary on our website. Mm-hmm. Like it becomes more and more shocking the more you look at it, despite the team having a very bad record. So that's kind of where I stand on it.
Arkansas finished the year with a 10-22 record. Now we wait to see what, if anything, happens with Mike Neighbors as their coach, whether or not he's going to get to come back for another season with the Razorbacks. We appreciate you being with us today. Hope that we see you on our website, wholehogsports.com. Sam Pittman is speaking to reporters this afternoon to preview spring football. We'll have plenty from that on our website this afternoon. We'll also discuss it tomorrow on our podcast. Hope we see you at our website, or if not, on our podcast tomorrow. Have a great day, everyone.